So what is a knowledge graph? I'm going to show two brief videos of other people explaining this a little bit better than I could. So let me play this. And this is going to be about, I'm going to play about 30 seconds of this one and then about 3 minutes of the other one. Okay.
Roam Cult has really captured my attention recently, and for many reasons. I'll be showcasing some of those features as I find my way around Roam, and I welcome you to join me in exploring everything if you're getting started as well. As the bit of a nerd that I happen to be, I do a lot of supplementary research for my studies. Before looking into Roam, I never really wrote down any of my findings anywhere specifically, other than in huge outlines or essays that concluded some of my thoughts. Since Roam has been hyped up so much recently, I decided that I would take a deeper look into it and try to use it for anything related to my academic research, as well as focusing on designing a personal knowledge base, a personal CRM or contact relationship management, and daily planning. So the purpose of the next...
Okay, so if you search for Roam Research, you'll find a lot of videos of this, of people kind of discovering this note-taking tool and kind of being really excited about it. And I found this kind of early in the pandemic and was just got excited about sort of using it in my own life. And based on what I saw in the tool, I thought, okay, maybe I could put some open data in here and try to make a public knowledge graph. So if you want to learn more about sort of what this tool is or what some of the other graph research tools, I mentioned Obsidian. Obsidian is similar to Roam, but it has some key differences. But so that's kind of an introduction of sort of what this hype about Roam research is. This video is going to give a little bit more of an explanation of sort of why you would want to use Roam research. And a lot of the people that are using Roam research are coming from using Notion or Evernote or some other note-taking tool. But this will kind of give a brief overview of sort of how Roam and graph databases are different than some other tools. Okay, so I'm going to play this now.
Work. Capture and connection are two things that Roam is really great at, which are the foundational things that you need to do when you're completing improvised work, because you never quite know how the dots are going to connect, but you gather all this information and then you can work through it all and sift through it using Roam. Capture is when you write down an idea, a quotation, an explanation, or an observation that you've had about the world. Connection is when you realize that the dots that you noted down suddenly relate to one another. And being able to do that more effectively and more efficiently means that you become better at your creative work, better at problem solving, and also you'll just be faster at your improvised work and completing it. Practically, the ideas that you capture may have come from a film or a book that you've read, and then being able to draw connections between those, that's the benefit of network note-taking, and that is what Roam Research is, a network note-taking tool. Instead, if you contrast it with a hierarchical note-taking system, all of those pieces of information live in their separate silos, and it's much harder to then draw connections between them. When you first get started with using a network note-taking tool like Roam Research, it will feel like instead of swimming against the current, you're suddenly swimming with it. And speaking of swimming against the current, we're now going to look at what is a hierarchical note-taking system and what does that look like in practice, and why is it that network note-taking allows you to break through all these silos. Looking at hierarchical note-taking systems, the key difference is that instead of your ideas being open to connections, they are closed off. That's because you house all of your ideas, all of your notes, inside folders, which are then inside more folders, which are then inside files. And all of these live in separate silos. So being able to draw connections between them is much more difficult because they are, in essence, opaque relative to the network structure. The difficulty of finding these connections gets even harder when things get big. And one of the reasons that you want to be able to sift through your notes really fast is because of serendipitous connections. These are connections that you don't know exist and you didn't know that you were looking for, but if you set yourself up in a way that facilitates these connections to reveal themselves to you, that's a serendipitous connection. And these revealed connections is what Roam is very good at. You can achieve great outcomes with hierarchical note-taking systems, but they are so much more frictionful that when you switch over to network note-taking, you will realize that there was something.
Okay, so that's about all I wanted to show with that one. That kind of gives it sort of like the high-level pitch for like why you would want to use something like a networked note-taking tool. I realized that I forgot to kind of just go over the outline of what we were going to do today. So let me just do that really quickly. And then in the next section, I will actually introduce myself a little bit and tell you a little bit about who I am and why I'm here giving this talk. So we did the welcome and had some small talk. You did the survey, so I know a little bit about you all. We're going to talk about how I went from sort of discovering this Roam, very briefly, how I went from discovering this Roam cult sort of hashtag and this new tool to thinking about how that could be applied to civic tech, specifically with New York City Open Data. And then I'm going to give a tour of the content that's currently in Civic Roam, and then an intro to how you can use the tool as it exists right now to search documents that are in Civic Roam. Then I'm going to talk about how we can use Civic Roam to go from research questions to identifying data sets that might be useful to answer those research questions, and then how to search those data sets and documents. And then we are going to get a little interactive and have everybody suggest some data sets that they'd like to see in a networked note-taking tool, and then suggest some search tags that we could use on the public version of Civic Roam for people to search through these documents. And then I'm going to demo how we can upload a new data set into this system. And then I'm going to demo how you can download and use all of the data that you see in Civic Roam in your own network note-taking tool. Now, I will note, I have no affiliation with Roam Research. It is a paid tool. It's pretty expensive, $15 a month. There are free alternatives to it, namely Obsidian. So I will go over how you could use the data that's here, how you could put it into Obsidian and show you how to download Obsidian and put the data into that tool if you want to use there. This presentation is all being done within Roam. So you can see as I'm clicking around and you see this sidebar, and I'm going to be doing things like clicking these bullets that expand, that are nested. Everything here is in Roam. Okay, so yeah, and then we will talk about next steps and if anyone has any questions. Okay, so that's the overview. Also, this is really a brand new kind of experiment of a tool. I'm not sure where I want to go with the project. So it's kind of, thanks for being kind of the first to listen to this sort of pitch and demo. Okay. And also, I'm not really experienced doing Zoom presentations. So it's very weird for me right now, but we'll make it through. Okay. So from Roam cult to Civic Roam, my journey to Civic Roam. In 2011, I was in urban planning school. I discovered civic tech through BetaNYC. And then I worked at a civic tech startup called Cities, where we were taking data from the open data portal and trying to make a website that had linked data. It was using semantic media wiki. So kind of like a Wikipedia of open data about New York City. And so it was a really fun project to work on. It was kind of interesting, but the process for doing it was back in 2013-14 was pretty complex. And the company sort of pivoted, and I left, and this kind of idea of like a Wikipedia of New York City data kind of sort of receded into the background. But I never stopped thinking about that kind of project and sort of how exciting that idea is. After that, I moved on to work for New York City government. So I currently work for New York City government. I've worked in a couple of different roles, but I'm now working in the Department of Homeless Services, doing data and software work. But through my time in city government, I learned about how kind of open data gets made. And I also learned a lot more about vast ocean of PDF reports that are produced by all different NYC agencies. They're often hidden, but they have a lot of valuable information. So fast forward to pandemic times, and I found this Roam cult hashtag. And if you look on Twitter for Roam cult, you'll see this really interesting community of people that is just sort of exploring the possibilities of this tool. Now, a lot of people are just looking for like a productivity tool. There's a whole subset of, but then there's a subset of academic researchers who are using this as a tool to replicate some of, or to enhance some of their research processes. So kind of around that use case, I got interested in, well, there's a set of researchers, academics, people who work for community organizations that are interested in data about New York City, and we're all interested in some of the same documents, but they're all in all these different places. So could we use this software that I started playing around with to put all of the, or a big, start to build a corpus of data about New York City and make it searchable through this tool. So this has been my pandemic side project for about the past 9 months or so. And I just recently, kind of like pulled it together and kind of in time for this Open Data Week. So I think I've shared all the links before, but you can see Civic Roam, and I'm going to be giving a tour of the civicroam.org, kind of the main URL, but I'll be giving a tour of what the content is actually right now. So this is an early demo. And it's an early demo of potential users, which is you all, because you're somehow you saw something in the demonstration or in the description of this session that you thought, oh, maybe I want to learn more about this. So I want to validate what are some actual use cases. So I will be unmuting and encouraging people to talk here and join the chat. So we will hopefully keep this interactive after I get through a little bit more of the tour. Yeah, so that is what we will do now. Okay, so this presentation exists in the Roam Research instance of Civic Roam. So if you went to civicroam.org, that is just all of the data that's here put into kind of a prettier way to look at it and a site that's faster to load. So what I will do is I'm going to close out of that so we have more space here. And just go through some of these items. Okay, so what can you do? You can search the full text of documents all in one place. What's in Civic Roam? The New York City Charter. And so this is the kind of like every data source has metadata about it. And I'm hoping to add some more metadata, but at least you can see the source where this is coming from, this site called Read the Docs, which is a site that's built by WeGov, which is had presented in some other sessions in Open Data. And here we go. So all of the content from the city charter has been copied into Civic Roam. So the table of contents, you can go to each of these chapters, and then the content here is the full text of all of the entire city charter. So it's there, and we'll get into in a minute how you can search it. Same thing for the administrative code. It's a big document and lots of chapters with lots of stuff in it. The charter, I think more people are familiar with the charter and what the administrative code is, but just briefly, like the charter is the laws that govern New York City and set up the agencies and the structure of government. And so there are chapters for the budget process, for procurement, public safety, all this stuff. The administrative code gets into a little bit more details about like exactly how the budget is made, like on what day it's made, what are all the categories, what's the difference between capital budget and operating budget. So this is just like the rules for how the city is run. There's another document called the Rules of New York City, which I haven't completely put into the site, but we'll put that in eventually. So those are kind of two large documents. And then the next one is the Mayor's Management Report, which is produced every year. And then there's another preliminary Mayor's Management Report. So this report's kind of produced 2 times a year, and it's sort of the agency scorecard. So it's how the city thinks it's doing based on the metrics that it's set for itself. So this was the Mayor's Management Report for city fiscal year 2020, which was published in September. And so they have chapters about COVID response, and these PDF documents are published on the city's website, but it's hard to search this document. So each of these chapters has its own page, but you can search anything in this document in the search bar from all of the chapters. So that's the Mayor's Management Report. So tons of really interesting information in there about, and there's a chapter here for every agency. So if you want to know what's going on in the city, Mayor's Management Report is a huge resource. Another kind of cache of documents is really, I think is really useful, but is not. So the community district need statements, every community district is stipulated by the charter. I believe it's by the charter, it might be in the administrative code, to create a list of what they think should happen in their community district. So there's some sort of specifics about what they're supposed to put in there, but they produce this every year. And it's also a really good sort of snapshot into on the local level what each community district is interested in. So there's these PDFs and they have lots of tables, but also text that describes what's going on a hyper local level. But they're on a New York City planning website and they're just as PDFs. So I took the PDFs and just converted them to text and put them here, and each one has their own page. So these are all searchable. Okay, and then the last thing here is each community district has its own page. And in a community district, you can see here's the need statement. This is the metadata about the need statement. But then there are other analysis or dashboards that have been created by other entities that can be displayed here. So the New York City Planning Labs, a really great group in New York City Department of Planning, put this website together of the community district profiles. So this is just a simple embed of displaying the information from that website about this community board on this page. The idea here is just to start collecting documents and analysis and dashboards about specific geographies and collecting them all in one place from multiple locations. Okay, so that is sort of the extent of what's in there. I had put in some other data, but for this demonstration, I just want to kind of focus on these documents and then see what other people are interested in. Because I could talk about lots of other documents or things I think are important, but I'm really just interested in learning a little bit more about what other people are looking at. So some questions that I have are what type of metadata people might be interested in seeing for some of these resources, and then kind of like ideas about if there's anything about the layout that you like, or if there's anything that you find confusing. And I'm sure there's lots that you find confusing because this is sort of one of the first, just sort of validations of this tool. So that's kind of a brief overview of what the content is that's in the site right now. So that was a very quick tour of Civic Roam content. Okay, great. I have a question. Many of the PDFs that are put out by the city agencies contain references to other studies or previous applications. Is there an easy way to extract these links automatically or semi-automatically? Oh, that's a really good question. So I think that behind the scenes, what I'm trying to do is figure out how I can do some of this stuff automatically. So the creation of the structure of these pages for the metadata I did in Python. So I created kind of a page for each of these, and for PDFs that have kind of a pattern to URL structure, I was able to do that kind of, for example, for the community district profiles pages. So I think it's like on a case-by-case basis. With PDFs in particular, it's just a lot of grunt work. So it's either like literally copy and pasting from text, or if there is a structure to either the metadata about the PDFs or to the PDFs themselves, there's a couple of different tools that can be used to sort of like, extract links, like you said, or do something else. But there's no easy answer. And I think that that's like one of the value statements that I'm hoping Civic Roam, or value proposition Civic Roam has, is that there are certain types of documents that are valuable to more than just one person. If we're gonna kind of do work to make them searchable for other, cross-referenceable or discoverable for other people, then let's start building up this corpus, Civic Roam, so that we can so that others can benefit from some of that work. So I don't know how, that didn't really specifically answer your question, but I think that, Eugene, do you want to follow up or anything on that question before we move on?
Hi, yes. Hi, how are you? Thanks
Good.
for actually putting this together. I think this is a really useful tool, and I'm really glad to be able to see it in action. I'm just trying to think of some, data sets, just some background on Community Board 2.
Okay.
And so, obviously a lot of what we're looking at sometimes is our own minutes. We'd like to get those indexed and kind of put out so that they're more easily searchable. There's also applications that frequently come along. So I'll give one use case. A landmarks application comes through. And then, there's an address mentioned. And so this is where I had the question earlier about the links and things like PDFs and applications. So sometimes they'll reference a previous landmarks application, which is a different data set. And there's an ID number, which I think you could parse out or search from PDFs. It's like LPC dash 2 numbers dash 5 numbers. But there's also address information, which a lot of people use to just search. So I'm just trying to think of ways that, we can kind of expand on this. If someone devises a way to, go through a data set and pull out for example, LPC links, is that something that could be kind of in an open source way published out and used as a tool for everyone, and then, have that improved on in terms of, I think you mentioned like going through and pulling
Yeah.
out data from PDFs and things like that.
Yeah, I think that's a great use case. I don't want to get too far into that, but I will connect with you afterwards or towards the end. But yeah, that's really useful. And yeah, and I think that landmark is something that all community boards are dealing with. And yeah, so if you're having that issue, then likely others are as well.
And I think a more general application would be just address information, right? So when there's a address like, 5 Fifth Avenue, to parse that out and be able to link it back to like a specific address in your planning data, in SLA data, that's usually an easy way to see if there's been other activity from a particular applicant or address. And then usually there's multiple addresses. So kind of being able to take all of that and normalize it and pull it into one address key would be amazing. But that's it for my questions. Thanks.
Okay, great. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I have not done much work on addresses, although like having normalized addresses, although there are other projects that have done that, and I would love to incorporate those projects kind of into this. And one way that I see this is it's sort of a collection of a lot of tools that other people have built or standards that other people have built up, and sort of putting them all in one place, because you might know about the community profile, but maybe you don't know about some other address tool. So that's kind of like one of the hopes for this project. Let me look at a couple other questions here. Okay, so be interested in seeing metadata 311 calls with NYPD response times. Okay, 311 and agency response times, DCP zoning requests. Okay. Oh wait, these are all great requests. So Allison, I don't have any immediate response to that, except yes, I think these are all interesting. I'll copy these. Let me see if I can do it. I don't know. This might take too long. Okay. And then Jonathan, thanks. Oh yes, there's an issue with the PDF, the link embed. So yeah, I'm publishing this on kind of like 3 different places, and there's like little differences between how they treat links. Thanks for pointing that out. Automated those files, software, Pandoc. Yeah, I'm mainly using. I'm mainly using Python for the metadata. When I put it when I copy document text from a PDF into Roam Research, I can then export it a markdown file. So I'm really using a lot of manual process for a lot of these. So specifically for the charter and administrative code, that was sort of, I used Python to create the structure, the pages, the linked pages for all of the chapters. And then one by one, I just sort of went in, embedded the PDF, and then copied the text in. For the community district needs statements, I did a little more parsing just in Sublime text of removing ligatures. So there's some ligatures is like if there's 2 letters that are connected together, like just the typeface, and sometimes that won't show up, so you can't search it. So there are little issues like that. And I think it just the similar. I think it's like there's a different recipe for each one, and there's probably tools that are faster or better for doing some of the things I've done. But I want to sort of also start building up a library of kind of recipes about how the data was transformed to get into this site. So I don't have those Python notebooks published yet, but I will publish those, and that might get into some of the more technical examples. Jonathan, I'd like to make searchable specific PDFs by Planning Commission or extension agencies about open land restoration following managed retreat. Oh yeah, okay, Veronica, that's a great use case. And specifically if you have the URLs to those documents. So this is a good plug for jumping ahead a little bit here. This URL for bit.ly/civicroam-suggest-data. So if you go there and put in the URL of a document example, then we can maybe look at that going through one of those a little bit later. So Eugene's address request, this could be done by ANHD's DAP portal. Yes, the DAP portal is awesome. And in an older version of this site, I had kind of a list of resources of like some of these other tools like DAP Portal, because kind of just like a collection of tools that could do some of the things, like maybe Civic Roam is not doing all of them, but it's just pointing people to collection of that. But yes, I also really like DAP Portal. But let me just go through now the next section, which is just an intro to how you can search with Roam. So there's a couple different ways. There's this other domain. So there's 3 domains. There's the civicroam.org, but there's no search on civicroam.org. Civic.roam.garden, which I will drag over here, is all of the same content, but it's just with a different tool. This website is generated by this Roam Garden, which is a static site generator. So it takes a series of markdown files and then creates a website here, and it creates URLs for each of those. So this site has all the same thing, like the charter, the administrative code, and you can search. There's a search bar up here, and you can search for community district needs. Let's say you're saying community district 2. Okay, so I can see Manhattan Community District 2. So that's the web page, and I can see all the reference documents here. This does full text. So let's say I was searching for what was somebody looking at? Landmark. Okay, so there's the Landmarks Preservation Commission, the Mayor's Management Report chapter on it. There's the chapter from the charter, and then here are community district needs. This is the community district needs statement that references that, and etc. So this is full text search, but it's not kind of filterable. So for an advanced search, you have to use Roam Research. So that's what this presentation is in right now. And Roam Research, the link I put in that all the links. So just a reminder, if you go to this bit.ly, it will give you all of these links. But this is that URL here. So this page where this presentation is the live site, and it's using the Roam Research. So within Roam Research, we can also search. So we can search for the same thing. We can search for landmark, and so it's similar. But then you can also see that on Roam, it goes a little bit deeper. It's going into the bullets for some of these, into some of the subsetting, the sub bullets for some of the pages. But this search is also a little bit. It only shows the first, I think it's the first 10 or 15 results for landmark. There's this kind of weird way that you can search with tags that I'm going to show you now. And I think that I want to see this as sort of, I don't think it's not really user friendly the way it is now, but I think it's very useful. And maybe this could be developed into something that's a little more user friendly, but we're trying to see how useful it is. Okay, so I'm going to create a new tag for landmark. And then if I go to this page, so now there's a page in this database for landmark, but there's nothing in it. And in this tiny unlinked references, if you click and then wait, okay, so it took a minute there, but there are 138 unlinked references. So within all the documents that are currently in Civic Roam, the word landmark shows up 138 times. And it shows up here. This is the first result, community district needs statement 7. So I could then go through here and do I just did a Apple F or Command F, and then search for the word landmark. And so that's where it actually is in that document. So or you could just copy this whole text into another thing. You showed where it, but this is just surfacing across all those documents where it shows up. The thing that you can do in Roam that you can't do in other places is this filter this page. And again, this user interface is a little strange, but it's powerful. So now you can filter for just the certain documents. And eventually I'd like to build something in where you could just search for, show me all of the community district need statements. Or I'm just interested in MMR chapters that mention this word. And then especially if you start getting more data documents into this, you can imagine that you're just sort of discovering where the city is mentioning certain things that you're interested in that you might not know. Maybe it's a specific address and you want to see where that's showed up in different documents. And I put in some documents, but I think that everyone's going to be interested in slightly different things. And you can upload your own set of documents. And so that's kind of the idea, is that there's like a corpus that sort of grows, but then people are free to put their own documents or data sets that they're interested in. Okay, so that was intro to search. Right. Okay, so let me just put this up here, and that was intro to search, and then we're going to go from research questions to data notification. Okay, so I'm just going to go through a little bit more of the content before taking questions, and then we can get into a little more interactive. And then I know this session said it was going to go for 2 hours, but I think it's we have some more people coming in, but we might end a little bit early but I'm here if people want to talk about this stuff. Okay, so I'm sorry. It's hard to fill the space when I feel like I'm talking to myself. And okay, so Civic Roam is in search. So basically, we just talked about a bunch of research questions that you had, and that was really helpful. So that's actually what I'm looking for right now, is things that people are actually interested in researching. And so people that work for government or nonprofits or community boards. So I'm going to take this feedback and take that as a direction of what content should maybe go into Roam, Civic Roam. So you can also bring your own data sets or documents, and you can work with Civic Roam to identify. I'll work with you to identify documents and data sets that might be relevant to the searches. And then I envision kind of helping people process this data and adding it to this growing public knowledge base. And then maybe even training people to use the customized knowledge base in your own research processes. So that's kind of where I'm seeing this thing going, and I would like to get into some more of the questions, but I would just put these links up now. Okay, great. So somebody already suggested zoning resolutions. Perfect. Okay. So you can go to bit.ly Civic Roam suggest data. And then I will see it here. And then also, if you have a search term that you're interested in, that's helpful for me to see kind of what insights could be found if we search through multiple documents. Some of the search terms is sort of like a chicken and egg thing. Like, you're not going to find something unless you know what documents are there. So there's kind of a balance there of when that's useful. Let's go. Let me look at the questions here before I go into a demo of uploading a new data set. Could you discuss a bit about your thoughts on how to embed these into city published websites? One that comes to mind is to help give better access to upcoming CD meetings, liquor license applications, land use variations, so that community members could easily get links to applicant documents, previous resolutions. Aha, yes. The state decisions, yes. Okay, that is great, Eugene. And actually that relates to what I sort of have in mind for a demo of uploading a new data set. So is anyone from Block Party here on the call right now?
Hello.
That's Sarah. Oh, hi.
Hi.
Hi, how are you? Thanks for joining. Yeah, Eugene is asking some specific questions. So I mean, if you want to introduce yourself and just give a brief explanation of what Block Party is, I think that would be a great one to sort of go through and show how you could take the information that's on Block Party and add it into Civic Roam, where it combined with other information about community boards.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for letting me talk a little bit about the project. It's been just a passion project to gather all of the community board meeting transcripts using YouTube's closed caption text to create a full transcript of what was actually said at the meeting. This is our web app where you can sign up to your community district's email, where we would send you the meeting highlights, which we gather using different sources of NLP and artificial intelligence, just to extract some of the key content. We presented about this today at Open Data Week, which was a lot of fun to get some feedback. So we have this in a structured database, and you can actually download it directly from here. But what would be cool is to have more of the actual content from the meeting, such as some of the, the meeting materials presented by the community board, and make this more of a resource for community boards to use as well, Our goal is to make local policy information accessible and bite-sized. And so we would love to help have this content be accessible in other places. So it'd be great to collaborate and provide some of the data that we've gathered for this project.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Sarah. Yeah, and I love your project, and I think it's like a great example of a civic tech project that's out there trying to help community board members or other people like just understand what's out there. And I think like where I see Civic Roam is kind of like collecting a lot of these different tools and linking them together. So I want to do a quick demo of like what that might look like for starting to put the transcripts into Civic Roam so that they could be searchable along with the community district needs statements and some of these other documents that might get put in. So that's the URL. So we can do in Roam, I'm just going to do like what you can do is you can do an iframe like this and just put in a URL, and a lot of them will just show up, will be embeddable. Okay, so let's take community board Manhattan Community Board 2. Actually, it's in archive. So if I go to archive, and I'm just going to get the text for, and I'm just doing this as a one-off. Like maybe there's a better way to kind of get bulk downloads for a project like Block Party, but sometimes you're only interested in one document. But I think this will give an example of sort of like what you can do. So this is the text for that. And so one thing I did is like you can do like the YouTube link, and this is like admittedly just like recreating a lot of like what's in here. And it's not like this part is not the most valuable, but it just sort of provides it a context.
But yeah, the context connecting to all the other content would be really cool to just embed this in addition to the other resources. That's pretty exciting to think about.
Yeah, and I think like where I'm thinking about this is like if there's already a page for community board 2, so like, and then you can say like there would be a list of all the different transcripts is here as well. So that's the YouTube, and then I think the real benefit of putting it into Roam is that if all the text is in, the more text that's in Roam, the more serendipitous sort of connections you can find just by searching things. Like you might find a keyword and you wouldn't realize, like you could say like, what are the community boards within the past 6 months that have been talking about liquor license problems or rats or something else? And so you can kind of go sort of see like, if you only have view into your one community board, you might not know that the 2 community boards next to you also are having the same problem as you. But so we can start to, and hello, hi Sam. And I know there's a couple other people who came in a little bit later. So sorry if this is all kind of out of context, but we are just showing how you can put in some great data from Block Party. Sarah here is on the call, who one of the creators of that project. And so I'm just going to finish going through this example of if I have Manhattan Community Board 2, I've embedded their site here, and and so I could do something like this. I can do like take a screenshot of this, and you can even think about doing this like while you're live in a community board. So this is a top words used, and when I do this, I'm also creating a page for top words used. So now, if other pages use that, then they will be linked. They will be linked there. And let me just. The last thing is just putting the text in. So then I will put just raw text. And for that, I'll just go here, copy from the embedded page up there, copy all, and then paste. Oh, so this might take a second. Right. So now the full text from that page is copied into Roam Research here, into Civic Roam. And when you search for something, you can uncover it here. And so like I'm really excited about like specifically for like Block Party, seeing if there's ways to automate that through APIs or something else, so that it could just kind of pull in all of this information so that when you're in the page for Manhattan Community Board 2, it will show up at the bottom there. And I didn't link it there, but if I had actually, sorry, let me just do the last thing here, and that will show you how it can be linked. I'm just gonna say Manhattan Community District 2. Okay, so when I did put that around double brackets in Civic Roam, that creates that's a link, and so that page already exists. So now if I click on that, that's that page that we were looking at here. But now when I'm on this page, it's showing a link here that says Civic Roam ODW to 2021 presentation, but that's this demo of uploading that. And if I clicked on that, then that's just what we did. And so we have the whole YouTube and all the context. So now, like, just with just referencing something with the normalized geography right there. Now, whenever you go to Community Board 2 page, all of that information is now included along with the profile of all of those things that I've already put in there, and it's filterable. So now you can search through here and you can see, oh, well, I'm just interested in overlapping geographies. So this is an analysis that's just showing what are the other geographies that are intersect with Manhattan Community District 2. Okay, so that is a demo of how to upload a new data set. I think I will move on to how to download and use all of this data on your own if you're interested. But maybe let me see if there's any other questions here. So Eugene's liquor license, this is a good example. Great to exclude common phrases. Could anybody hear me? Yeah, okay, great. Okay. So let me just finish going through this demo of how you can download the data, and then we're getting close to the kind of the end of this the content here, and then we can have more time for discussion, and we might go till 5 a little bit after that, but I don't think we're going to go right till 5:30. Yeah, so all of the data and documents that are on Civic Roam are either open data that's produced by the government, or it's data that's otherwise in the public domain, or data is reused by permission of the creators of the data. So I haven't put in Block Party into this site yet because I haven't. I just like met Sarah over Twitter and we just talked a little bit, but we'll have some kind of agreement if it's okay to upload it, and then we can figure out how to use that credited properly. And I think that that's part of, besides the open data, I don't need to ask the government permission to republish a lot of this, the open data stuff or anything that's in the public domain. But there are a lot of interesting documents and reports that are out there that maybe would be interesting to put here. But those would be kind of like a one-by-one sort of getting permission to add in kind of data sets or documents. But everything that's on here now, if you go to my GitHub page, so I'm going to go there and walk you through this, and this should only take 5 or so minutes. But if you go here, pretty just simple page here, but it just has these files, civicroam.json and civicroammd.zip. So if you click here and then download, it's going to look something like this. That's like what the file looks like. Oh, sorry, let me just save it. Now I'm showing myself not as familiar with YouTube interface. Sorry, GitHub interfaces. I should be. There we go. Save link as. Okay, so I'm just going to put it on my desktop, and then while we're at it, I'm just going to grab this file too. So I guess you just have to right click and then save link as. And so now I have that file. Okay, so I'm done with GitHub. So I'm going to switch. This is kind of a walkthrough, but I'll just talk this through. I'm going to switch over to a kind of a demo instance here. So this is a blank. There's just one note here. All that's in here is just that one page and these 2 other pages that I created. But I could, if I'm in Roam, I could just import files and civicroam.json, and you'll see how quick this is. Hopefully, yep. Okay. So now it's going to take a couple minutes, or it might take less than a minute. It's going to upload the files, and when this is done, you'll have the entire structure. All the text of the charter of the administrative code, of the mayor's management reports, of the everything that we went through, that will be in your own instance of Roam Research. Okay, so like I mentioned before, there is it's kind of a steep cost and sort of learning thing for Roam Research. If you're not interested in that, I will show you. If you're not sort of ready to look at that as a tool, I will show you Obsidian. So Obsidian is another tool that creates these kind of, if you put something in brackets, it's a backlink. So both these tools are just like you're creating your own personal Wikipedia. And so this one is free though, and it stores the files locally. Roam stores them in the cloud or in the cache of your browser. So this one you can download Obsidian and then install it. I've already done that. So this is taking another minute. It is kind of big file there. So I just unzipped the other file, which is the markdown file. And so in the markdown file, there's just a series of a page, and each one of these is a page. And so what you do is in the Obsidian software, you just point to that folder. So I'm going to open a new vault. So you'll get something that looks like ignore kind of this section here because I've already done a bunch here. But if I open a folder as a vault is just a folder. A vault is just a specific folder that Obsidian is looking at for markdown files. So if I click on that and then click on Civic Roam MD, that folder I just downloaded, and open it, now everything here that is into this is now accessible in your Obsidian. So just a note here that like a lot of so Community District 10, the page here doesn't have that much content. It's just saying that it's a geography. The site has created a lot of pages kind of speculatively. Like I hope to have more information about it, but you can start searching for things here. So there's going to be a lot of blank pages, basically. Like I haven't done anything with city council districts yet, so there's blank pages, except on the community district pages, I've done an analysis to show overlapping districts. But in a future, if I start uploading documents about city council, then these would start being referenced there as well, just like we saw with the community districts. But you can search for, there's the start here page, and that's the same thing. And so if you can go here, then in Obsidian, this is the edit view. And then there's this button up here, the preview. So if you click on the preview, then you can kind of like click around. And so it's the same content, the charter here, all the full text of it here. And so you saw how quick that was to download and put into Obsidian. And then if you have your own search terms, you could use Obsidian to search for liquor. Okay, so liquor shows up in community district needs, in this community district needs statements. And just the word liquor, I just have a list of like where that showed up. And both Obsidian and Roam have a ton of kind of community developed plugins and JavaScript extensions, and sort of like people are hacking on these things. And it's they're both like, they're not open source projects. There are a couple open source projects that are trying to do this, but the thing that is great about them is that they're using standard formats. So they're using everything that you can export as Markdown, which is this very easy to translate from one system to the other. And so I realized that I may have done this. I should have tested this demo before, because I'm doing this on a local instance instead of the cloud instance. But I might need to troubleshoot this a little bit more to kind of show you, if you download the JSON file will create everything at once in the Roam instance. But I think that I'm going to need to quit this and restart it. So I apologize for not being able to show that, but it's just the same. This might take another 20 minutes or so. I'm not sure how long. I thought it would just happen in a minute, but maybe I'm using a lot of other memory elsewhere right now. But the concept is there, where you just download that file and then you upload it into either the JSON. You use the JSON to upload it into Roam, or you use the markdown zip file to put into a folder for Obsidian. And you can use the markdown file to selectively import markdown files into Roam as well. Okay, but I'm gonna quit this and then go back into the presentation. So sorry for the delay there. Okay, so I hope that was clear enough, but I put a text description of kind of how to do what I just described in the presentation, and you have a link to the presentation. I will also email the recording of this and the presentation to everyone once I get that, either tomorrow or early next week. Sorry, I think I crashed. So backup plan here. I didn't really have a backup plan. I think we were towards the end of the presentation. There wasn't really much else I wanted to cover. So I'll just go here and we can just start talking about a question. I guess like the one other thing I want to say, there's some cool looking graphs that just sort of like, you know, you can navigate by graph. I don't know. I find it looks great. It looks really interesting, but it's not as useful as you would hope it to be. But you know, they create this pretty graph of all the pages there, both softwares. Okay. So why don't we stop there, at least for my presentation? And yeah, I'm curious just to open it up to see if people have any questions or I don't know, just suggestions for research questions or yeah, any kind of impressions. I've sort of been just working on this, you know, mostly by myself and just started showing it to people pretty recently. But before I work on it anymore, I'm just wanting to talk to some people to see how it could actually be useful, or like what directions it's useful to go in. So anyone feel brave enough to speak out loud or put anything in the chat?
Sorry, I'm moving my mic. This is just a really interesting concept. I don't have any real solid questions for you right now, but I'm just thinking about connecting all of these government documents and how useful that could be if you could connect them to like the agency websites and to other massive government documents like New York City's building code. Yeah, I just love the work that you've done here and want to see more connections.
Yeah. Yes, I would love to connect with you more another time. We could talk more about that. But I think I've just been excited about like some of the software has just caught up where it's possible to do some of this stuff more quickly and easily and with less programming skills than it was even just a few years ago. Yeah, I'm hopeful that it can be useful to people like community boards or others. So thanks, Cindy, for sticking around and giving the intro in the beginning. See if, here's another, let me see, there's another question in the chat. Have you thought about graph network algorithms that could be useful to apply on the graph, e.g. shortest path between pages, documents, or clustering? That's a really great question. Yes, I have not done any work on that, but I have in the back of my mind had the idea that if there's a lot of documents structured in a way that they're linked together, what if you ran them through GPT-3? So the language algorithm from OpenAI to sort of start asking questions and using AI to say, read all the documents that I have structured here and come up with what you think would be a good answer for that. So I think that, yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, Gautam. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. Or do you want to follow up? And do you have any other thoughts on that? I'd be curious how you thought that might be useful.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. It's Gautam. Thanks for an awesome presentation. Yeah, I don't know if I've really thought too much about like what specific kind of graph or network algorithms could be useful here. I mean, stuff that sort of leverages the connections that you're making between documents. But maybe, yeah, I mean, something that just like, you know, shortest path is one of those algorithms that's often applied to graphs, and I imagine it might have some use here, like given these two documents, like what's the shortest way of getting from one to the other could give some insight into connections.
Yeah, I definitely want to look more into that, and yeah, hope to do that more in the future. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, Eugene, thank you for all your comments in the chat. Really, really useful to have somebody from a community board to be talking about like specific use cases. So I would love to stay in touch and see and let you know if we can get some more of the data that you're talking about into the site. Yeah, along those lines, I mean, I think I have all your email addresses now, so I hope you don't mind if I send you a very occasional update of like sort of, hey, there's a new thing in here. You want to check it out, see if you want to take another look, see if it's answering any research questions. I mean, I think one of the things I'm missing from this presentation, which I should have referenced earlier, is it's a hard thing to explain without kind of specific examples of like, you can search through all these documents and then it helped somebody actually discover an insight. So I think that is theoretically possible. What I'm hoping to do next is just build out a couple of those examples. So, maybe Eugene or some other people, like I will be trying to think about an actual use case, research question that somebody has, and see how it could be helped be answered through searching with this tool in something that would be difficult to do with traditional Google searches or kind of like looking through the documents one by one. So as I get some of those use cases, I will kind of keep everyone updated, but thank you to everyone for their thoughtful comments here. Okay, here we have another question. I also like to see the comptroller's reports. I find very informative. Yes, comptroller, yes, absolutely. And public advocate does a whole bunch of reports, and the borough presidents, city council members like put out their own reports and issues. So you can imagine like being interested in a specific issue and wanting to search through what multiple people have said about that issue, both within government or within kind of think tanks or kind of other groups. Yeah, that's definitely something comptroller's office does put out a lot of great reports. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming by. I'm just going to